A millionaire accidentally orders the wrong driver and falls for his nanny's friend. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive right into this heartwarming yet unexpected tale of love and miscommunication. Our story today begins in a small, cozy cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. The smell of freshly brewed coffee fills the air, mingling with the soft hum of conversation. It's one of those places where you can almost forget the world outside. Linda Brooks, a waitress with a warm heart but worn shoes, steps inside, feeling every inch of the tension in her chest. Her dress is secondhand, her shoes scuffed from the miles she's walked, but the cafe's elegance only seems to highlight her struggle. Today is no different. She's been running errands all morning, and the last thing she wants is to be here. But she promised her best friend, Jenny, she would at least try this blind date. Her nerves are on edge, her hands shaking as she clutches her phone and scans the room for the person she's supposed to meet. She's early, of course, and as she stands there, she whispers to herself, Table 7. Table 7. The numbers don't feel right in her mouth, like some strange mantra, as she finally spots him, an elegantly dressed man sitting alone at the back of the room. His dark hair is neatly styled, and his focus is on his phone, his posture poised and confident. She hesitates for just a second, but the promise to Jenny echoes in her mind. Hi, you must be Kevin, she says, forcing a smile. The man looks up, his eyes blinking in confusion. He's momentarily thrown off guard, clearly unsure of what just happened. For a second, he just stares at her, before finally mumbling, hi, Linda. She misreads his hesitation as shyness and slides into the seat across from him, still nervously fumbling with her napkin. Oh, I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us, she says with an awkward laugh. The man, Liam Parker, opens his mouth to say something, but then pauses. His business associate had just texted him to cancel their meeting, and something about Linda's genuine smile makes him hesitate. He decides to play along. Right, blind dates are something else, he says, his voice soft. Linda laughs again, a bit too loud this time, but her nerves are starting to settle. Tell me about it. Jenny's been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy. Work, you know, she says, taking a sip of water. And you? Liam asks, raising an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. I'm a waitress, Linda admits, trying to sound confident, but feeling the sting of her reality. Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them, anyway. What about you? Liam hesitates for a moment, then says simply, I work in tech. Linda nods, trying her best to keep up with the conversation, but she has no idea what tech really means. Coding, apps, and stuff? I'm terrible with computers, she adds with a laugh. Liam smiles, a genuine smile, his interest growing in spite of himself. She's so different from the polished socialites he's used to. She's real, open, and refreshingly unpretentious. He leans back in his chair, relaxing for the first time today. Something like that, he replies, his eyes never leaving her. The conversation flows easily after that. They talk about their families, their dreams, and their lives. For Linda, it's a small relief to talk to someone who isn't judging her every move, someone who actually listens. For Liam, it's a strange feeling too. He's so used to conversations that are calculated, transactional. But with Linda, he finds himself laughing more than he has in months. As they chat, Linda's phone buzzes with a message from Jenny. Hey Linda, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin. Linda's heart sinks as she rereads the message. Her stomach drops with the realization. She looks up at Liam, her face flushing with embarrassment. You're not Kevin, are you? She asks, barely above a whisper. Liam's smile falters. Guilt flickers in his eyes as he admits. No, I'm not. Linda's face turns bright red, and she stands up quickly. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, she mutters, her voice barely audible as she grabs her coat and bolts for the door. Liam watches her go, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had meant to correct her from the start, but now, he's not sure he wants to. He finds himself wondering if he'll ever see her again, and why the thought of not seeing her again bothers him so much. What was it about her? The next morning, Linda woke up with a burning feeling of embarrassment still lingering from last night. She had walked out of the restaurant in such a hurry that she didn't even think to apologize for the awkward misunderstanding. Her cheeks flushed at the thought of it. She had never imagined her blind date would turn into a situation like that. But as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she found herself thinking about Liam more than she expected. His calm demeanor, his smile, the way he listened to her without judgment. It felt strange. She wasn't used to that kind of attention. The kind of attention that made her feel like maybe she mattered, just for who she was, not what she had or didn't have. She sighed, shaking her head, and tried to push the thought out of her mind. She had enough problems to deal with. The bills were piling up, and rent was due. She needed to focus on that, not some guy she had embarrassed herself in front of. After all, there was no way she would see him again. It was just a mistake, and she had to let it go. But life, it seemed, had other plans. Hours later, Linda was finishing up her shift at the diner when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and saw a message from an unknown number. A small knot tightened in her stomach. "Hi Linda, this is Liam. I was the guy at the restaurant last night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee maybe." She stared at the message for a long time, her fingers trembling. She wasn't sure what to make of it. He wanted to see her again? The same man she had mistaken for someone else, the one she had bolted from like a fool? She bit her lip, unsure of what to do. Part of her wanted to just ignore it and move on, but another part felt curious. What was the harm in having coffee with him? He didn't seem like the type of guy to make fun of her for the mistake. After a few minutes of hesitation, she typed out a response. "Okay, coffee sounds nice." She pressed send, then immediately regretted it. What was she doing? It wasn't like her to be so impulsive. But then again, maybe it was time for something different. Liam replied almost instantly, asking her to meet him at a local coffee shop in the afternoon. Linda couldn't help but feel a flutter in her chest at the thought of seeing him again. A part of her still felt nervous, but another part felt hopeful. It had been a long time since anyone had made her feel this way. The moment she stepped into the coffee shop, she spotted him right away. He was dressed casually in jeans and a simple sweater, looking more relaxed than he had at the restaurant. There was no sign of the polished, businesslike man she had met the night before. Just a regular guy, sitting at a corner table, his eyes scanning the room. He looked up when she entered, his face lighting up with a warm smile. "Hi," he said, his voice just as soft and friendly as it had been the night before. "Thanks for coming." Linda smiled nervously as she approached the table and sat down across from him. "Thanks for asking me," she replied, still unsure of what exactly this was. Was this just a casual meeting? Or was he genuinely interested in getting to know her? "I'm glad you agreed," Liam said. "I thought about what happened last night, and, well, I thought it was kind of funny, actually. But also, it felt nice to talk to someone who wasn't just talking to me because of my job or my money." Linda raised an eyebrow. "You're a millionaire, right?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. Liam smiled, a little embarrassed. "Yeah, but I'm also just a guy. I promise I'm not here to impress you with that." Linda nodded, feeling a mix of relief and confusion. "So, what's the deal with the tech stuff you mentioned?" she asked, eager to change the subject. "Oh, I work with tech startups," Liam replied. "It's a lot of meetings, a lot of numbers, and not much real connection. But when I met you, it was different. You made me feel like I was actually being listened to, not just talked at." Linda smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Well, I'm glad I could help with that," she said. They talked for a while longer, sharing stories about their lives. Linda found herself opening up to him more than she had expected, talking about her dreams of becoming an artist, the struggles she faced just to get by, and the challenges of trying to keep everything together while feeling so alone. Liam listened, really listened, and it made her feel seen. Not as someone who was struggling, but as someone who had potential, someone worth caring about. The conversation flowed naturally, and before they knew it, hours had passed. As they stood up to leave, Liam smiled at her. "I'm really glad we did this," he said. "I've been thinking about our conversation all day." Linda felt a small flutter in her chest, and before she could stop herself, she blurted out, "I've been thinking about it too." Liam's smile widened, and for a brief moment, Their eyes met and held, a quiet understanding passing between them. As they walked out of the coffee shop, the cold air felt less biting. There was something different about today, something that made Linda feel like maybe, just maybe, there was a future she hadn't seen before. And that future, she realized, might just involve Liam. The next few days passed by in a blur for Linda. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam and the unexpected connection they had made over coffee. It was so unlike anything she had experienced before. She had been so used to struggling, to feeling invisible, but with him, it felt like maybe she was seen for who she really was. It was a strange feeling, one she hadn't allowed herself to entertain in a long time. She had always told herself that people like her, people who worked hard to survive, didn't get the luxury of fairy tale endings. But with Liam, there was something different, something real. She couldn't ignore it, even if she tried. As the weekend approached, she found herself looking at her phone more often, hoping to see a message from him, hoping to hear from him again. And then, just like that, it came. A simple text. Hey Linda, I hope you're doing well. Would you like to grab dinner tomorrow? Her heart skipped a beat as she read the message. She hesitated for only a second before typing her reply. I'd love that. It wasn't long before they were sitting across from each other at a cozy Italian restaurant. The atmosphere was intimate, with soft lighting and the faint hum of classical music playing in the background. Linda couldn't help but feel a little nervous, though she tried to hide it. Liam, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. He was casual, charming, and made her feel comfortable, like there was no need to impress. It was refreshing, and it made her relax a little. They talked about everything and nothing, about their favorite movies, their childhoods, their hopes for the future. And somewhere in the midst of it all, something shifted. Linda couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she felt the connection deepening, felt herself starting to let her guard down. After dinner, they took a walk through the park nearby. The evening air was cool, and the stars above seemed to twinkle just for them. As they strolled side by side, Linda couldn't help but think that this was the kind of moment she had always dreamed of but never thought would actually happen to her. Liam's hand brushed against hers, and she felt a small spark of electricity shoot through her. She quickly looked up at him, her heart racing, but he was smiling at her, his eyes soft. He didn't pull away. Instead, he gently took her hand in his. You know, he said softly, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, Linda. Linda felt a warmth spread through her chest, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe she wasn't just someone to be overlooked or forgotten. Maybe she was worth something more. I've enjoyed it too, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a brief silence as they continued walking, and Linda couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. She had been so afraid of getting her hopes up, of letting herself believe that someone like Liam could actually be interested in her. But now, as they walked together, hand in hand, it felt like the impossible was finally within reach. When they reached the end of the park, Liam stopped and turned to face her. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression serious, before speaking again. Linda, I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I feel like there's something real here, something worth exploring. Her heart pounded in her chest as she looked into his eyes. She had felt it too, but hearing him say it out loud made it all the more real. I feel the same way, she replied, her voice shaking slightly. Liam smiled, a smile that made her feel like the whole world was right in that moment. Good, he said softly, because I'd like to see where this goes. I think we could really have something special. Linda's heart soared as she realized that this wasn't just a fleeting connection. This wasn't just some mistake that would fade away. This was the beginning of something more, something she had never thought was possible for someone like her. As they stood there, looking at each other in the quiet night, Linda felt a sense of hope that she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she was ready to find out. As they said their goodbyes that evening, Liam leaned in and gave her a soft kiss on the cheek, a gesture so sweet and tender that Linda couldn't help but feel like maybe, just maybe, her life was finally taking a turn for the better. Days passed, and Linda found herself thinking about Liam more and more. Their dates had been simple, yet meaningful. Long walks in the park, quiet dinners, moments of shared laughter that made her feel as though time stood still. She had never expected to connect with someone like him, someone who seemed so different from the life she knew. But here she was, beginning to care for him in a way she hadn't allowed herself to in years. Liam had a way of making her feel like she mattered, not just for the things she could give or achieve, but for who she truly was. Every time they talked, it was like peeling away another layer of herself she had buried beneath the weight of daily struggles. But as their connection deepened, Linda began to feel a sense of unease creeping in, like a shadow she couldn't quite shake off. She was falling for him, but there was something she hadn't told him, something she was afraid to face herself. Her life was still a mess. The bills were overdue, the rent was late, and she was barely scraping by. What would Liam think if he knew the truth? Would he still see her the same way, or would he pull away, just like everyone else? These thoughts lingered in her mind as she met him for another coffee date one afternoon. As she walked into the cafe, she spotted him sitting by the window, a soft smile crossing his face when he saw her approach. It felt easy to be with him, easy in a way that felt almost too good to be true. "Hey, you look great," Liam said as she slid into the seat across from him. His smile was warm, his eyes lighting up in a way that made Linda's heart skip a beat. She returned the smile, though a part of her still felt that nagging anxiety. "Thanks," she replied softly. "You're not looking too bad yourself." They both laughed, but Linda couldn't shake the feeling that something was bubbling beneath the surface. She could feel herself holding back, not fully opening up like she wanted to. "Is everything okay?" Liam asked, noticing the shift in her mood. His tone was gentle, as if he was giving her the space to open up if she wanted to. Linda hesitated, unsure of what to say. She wanted to be honest with him, to share the truth about how hard things were, but a part of her was terrified of what that might mean. "I'm fine," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just a little tired, that's all." Liam studied her for a moment, his gaze soft but knowing. "You know, you don't have to pretend with me," he said, his voice steady. "I'm here for you, Linda, no matter what." Linda's breath caught in her throat. She had never heard someone say something like that to her before. She had always been the one to keep everything locked away, never showing anyone the full extent of her struggles. But here was Liam, offering his support, without judgment, without asking for anything in return. For a moment, Linda felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Maybe it was time to stop pretending, time to let someone in. But just as she was about to speak, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She looked down at the screen and saw a message from her landlord. "Rent overdue. Final notice." Her heart sank as she read the words. She had hoped for a miracle, some way to make the payment, but now it was clear that it wasn't coming. She glanced up at Liam, feeling the familiar shame creeping back in. How could she tell him about this? Would he think she was just another woman looking for someone to rescue her? "Is something wrong?" Liam asked, his concern palpable. Linda shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. She didn't want to burden him with her problems, not now, not when everything between them was so new and so promising. But as Liam reached across the table and gently took her hand, all the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. "You don't have to hide from me, Linda," he said softly. "Whatever it is, we can figure it out together." The sincerity in his voice made her heart swell, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage, and finally spoke. "I don't know how to do this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm struggling, Liam. I'm not the person you think I am. My life is a mess. I can barely pay rent, and I'm just trying to keep it all together." The words tumbled out in a rush, the weight of them settling heavily between them. She looked down at their hands, her throat tight with emotion. "I don't want you to feel sorry for me," she added quickly, "but I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to be a disappointment." Liam squeezed her hand gently, a reassuring smile on his face. "You're not a disappointment, Linda," he said firmly. "You're a strong, amazing woman, and I care about you. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. Together." Linda's eyes filled with tears as the weight of his words sank in. She had never expected this, never expected someone to care about her in the way Liam did. In that moment, she realized that maybe she had been wrong to doubt herself, to doubt the possibility of something real. With him, she didn't have to be perfect. She just had to be herself. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like that was enough. The days that followed were a mix of relief and anxiety for Linda. Relief, because for the first time, she wasn't carrying the weight of her struggles alone. Liam had promised they would figure things out together, and she found comfort in his words. Yet, The anxiety still lingered in the back of her mind. She couldn't shake the fear that the truth about her life might drive him away. No matter how hard she tried to push it aside, the thought of him discovering the full extent of her situation terrified her. What if he realized he was just wasting his time with her? Despite her fears, Liam's presence in her life was undeniable. Every moment with him felt easy, like a breath of fresh air after being submerged underwater for too long. They spent the next few weeks together, continuing to talk and laugh over simple dinners, walks in the park, and quiet afternoons spent in each other's company. Linda began to feel like she could breathe again, that maybe she could start believing in the possibility of a different life, one where she wasn't just surviving, but actually living. One evening, Liam invited her to an event, a charity gala he was hosting for a cause he deeply cared about. Linda had never been to an event like this before. The glitz, the glamour, the fancy dresses and tuxedos, it was all so overwhelming. But when Liam asked her to be his date, she couldn't say no. She wasn't sure if she belonged in that world, but the way he looked at her made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she did. As they arrived at the venue, Linda's nerves crept up. She was wearing a dress that was beautiful but not nearly as expensive as the ones the other women were wearing. She tried to push the thoughts aside, focusing on Liam as he smiled at her, his arm around her waist. "You look stunning, Linda," he said, his voice soft but full of admiration. She felt her cheeks flush, not just from the compliment, but from the warmth in his words. "Thank you," she said, smiling back at him, trying to steady her nerves. The night was everything she had imagined it would be, and more. The room was filled with people, many of whom were wealthy and influential, but Liam seemed completely at ease in their presence. He introduced her to several guests, and Linda couldn't help but feel like an outsider. They talked, laughed, and exchanged pleasantries, but Linda couldn't shake the feeling that everyone around her was looking at her, judging her. She didn't belong here, and the thought made her want to shrink into the background. As the evening wore on, Liam noticed her discomfort. He leaned in, his voice low. "Are you okay?" Linda hesitated for a moment, feeling torn between wanting to be honest and wanting to keep up appearances. "I just feel out of place, like I don't belong here," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's eyes softened, and he gently took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "You belong here with me," he said, his words simple but powerful. "You're the only one I care about tonight." His words gave her the strength to push aside her insecurities. For the first time that evening, Linda truly allowed herself to enjoy the night. She danced with Liam, laughed with the other guests, and for a brief moment, she felt like she belonged. As the evening came to a close, Liam took her hand once more. They stepped outside into the cool night air, the lights of the city twinkling around them. "You did amazing tonight," he said, his voice filled with pride. Linda smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude she hadn't realized she needed. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said softly. "I never thought I'd be able to experience something like this." Liam smiled back, his eyes shining with affection. "I'm just glad you were here with me," he replied. As they walked together through the city, Linda realized that the night wasn't just about the fancy event. It was about Liam's unwavering belief in her, in the person she was becoming. She had always doubted her worth, convinced that the life she led wasn't enough for someone like Liam. But tonight, she saw that he didn't care about the things she lacked. He cared about her, the real her, the person who was capable of love, kindness, and strength, even in the face of her struggles. And for the first time in a long time, Linda felt like she was worthy of that love. She knew there was still a long road ahead, full of challenges and uncertainties, but with Liam by her side, she felt ready to face it. Together, they could make it through anything. The following weeks were a whirlwind of new experiences and growing emotions for Linda. Every time she was with Liam, she felt like she was stepping into a world she had only dreamed of, a world filled with opportunities, laughter, and moments of pure joy. Yet, even in the glow of these moments, the nagging doubts never fully disappeared. She couldn't stop thinking about her own life, the mess she had created, and the fear that Liam would eventually see her for who she truly was, a woman struggling to keep it all together. She had been working at the diner more hours than usual, trying to make ends meet, and her rent was still overdue. Despite everything, Liam remained steadfast, supporting her in ways she never thought possible. But Linda knew deep down that eventually, her past would catch up to her, and she would have to face it. One evening, as they were walking through the city after a quiet dinner, Liam's phone buzzed. He glanced down at it, and then back at Linda, a slight frown crossing his face. "Everything okay?" Linda asked, noticing the change in his expression. Liam nodded, but there was a hesitation in his eyes. "Yeah, just a few things to take care of. It's been a busy week." He smiled at her, but Linda could sense there was more to it. They continued walking, but the easy rhythm they had shared seemed to shift. Linda felt a strange discomfort settle in her chest. She didn't know why, but something about the way he had looked at his phone bothered her. She didn't want to make a big deal out of it, but the feeling lingered, and she couldn't shake it. "You know, I've been thinking about something," she said, trying to break the silence. Liam turned to her, giving her his full attention. "What's on your mind?" Linda took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I don't want to keep hiding things from you. I know I've told you bits and pieces of my life, but I've been keeping a lot from you. I'm not perfect, Liam. I don't have everything figured out like you do." She could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air, but she couldn't stop herself. It felt like she needed to say this, needed him to understand the truth about who she was. Liam stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression was soft, his eyes full of concern. "Linda, you don't have to be perfect," he said, his voice steady. "I don't care about your past or the mistakes you've made. I care about you, the person you are now." Linda's heart fluttered at his words, but a part of her still felt hesitant. "But what if my past catches up to me? What if I'm not the person you think I am?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Liam reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. "You're not defined by your past, Linda. I see you for who you are, the woman I care about." His words were like a balm to her soul, soothing the doubts that had been gnawing at her. She felt the tension in her chest begin to ease, but still, something inside her hesitated. She wasn't sure she was ready to completely let go of her fears. "I just don't want to let you down," she whispered. Liam smiled softly, his thumb brushing against her cheek. "You could never let me down," he said. "You're not just someone I'm with because of how you look or what you have. You're someone I want to be with because of who you are. And I'm not going anywhere." Linda's heart swelled at his words. It was everything she had wanted to hear, but somehow, it didn't feel real. How could someone like Liam, with all his wealth and success, really want someone like her? She had always felt like an outsider, never good enough for the life she dreamed of. But with Liam, it felt different. Maybe, just maybe, she could be enough. She leaned into his touch, closing her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to feel his warmth and his sincerity. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to do this. How to be the person you deserve." Liam kissed her forehead gently, his hands still resting on her face. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you." The simplicity of his words, the tenderness in his touch, made her feel like maybe, for once, she could truly believe that. Maybe she didn't have to carry the weight of her past anymore. Maybe she could let herself be loved, just as she was. As they stood there, in the quiet of the night, Linda realized something profound. For the first time in her life, she was starting to believe in the possibility of a future that didn't have to be defined by her struggles. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but with Liam by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Together, they could figure it out, one step at a time. As the weeks went by, Linda found herself slowly becoming more comfortable in her relationship with Liam. The doubts that had once clouded her thoughts were starting to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of hope. She still worried about her financial struggles, but having Liam by her side made the burden feel a little lighter. He was always there, offering his support without hesitation, and she couldn't help but feel grateful for it. Yet, despite everything, there was still a nagging feeling in the back of her mind. She had never fully opened up to him about just how bad things had gotten for her. The rent was overdue, her job at the diner was barely enough to cover her bills, and she hadn't told Liam about the possibility of losing her apartment. She didn't want to burden him with her problems, but as their relationship grew deeper, the fear of hiding the truth from him became harder to ignore. One evening, after a quiet dinner at his apartment, they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights sparkle in the distance. It was a peaceful night, the air cool and crisp, and for a moment, Linda felt like she could breathe easy. Liam was beside her, his hand resting gently on hers, and they were content in each other's company. But Linda knew she couldn't keep up the facade any longer. The time had come to share the truth with him. Liam, she began, her voice shaking slightly. There's something I need to tell you. He turned to her, concern in his eyes. What is it? He asked, his tone gentle but full of care. Linda took a deep breath, gathering her courage. I haven't been completely honest with you, she said quietly, her gaze focused on their intertwined fingers. Things aren't going as well as I've made them seem. I'm in a really tough spot right now. I'm behind on rent, and I'm honestly not sure how much longer I can keep up. I've been trying to make it work, but it's too much. She paused, waiting for his response, but Liam didn't say anything right away. Instead, he gently lifted her chin, making her look into his eyes. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? He asked softly, his voice filled with genuine concern. Linda felt the sting of guilt, but she knew this was the moment to be honest with him. I didn't want to seem like I was asking for help, she confessed. I didn't want to be a burden on you. You've already done so much for me, Liam, and I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. Liam's expression softened, and he pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her in a protective embrace. Linda, you're not a burden, he said firmly. I care about you, and I want to help. That's what a relationship is about, being there for each other, through the good and the bad. Linda felt the weight in her chest start to lift as he spoke. His words, so simple yet so meaningful, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry the weight of her struggles alone. But I don't want you to think I'm only here because I need help, she said, her voice trembling. I care about you, Liam, more than anything. But I'm scared that one day you'll realize you deserve someone better, someone who has their life together. Liam gently cupped her face in his hands, his gaze steady and full of affection. You're wrong, he said softly. You're exactly the person I want, the person I choose. It's not about whether you have everything figured out, Linda. It's about who you are, and I love who you are. I love your heart, your strength, and the way you make me feel. Don't you see? You don't have to be perfect to deserve love. You just have to be real. Linda's eyes welled up with tears at his words, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a deep sense of relief. She had spent so much time thinking she wasn't enough, that her imperfections would push people away. But Liam's love wasn't conditional on perfection. It was based on the person she was, flaws and all. I don't deserve you, she whispered, the weight of her emotions finally breaking through. Liam kissed her forehead gently, his voice tender. You do, more than you'll ever know. In that moment, Linda realized something important. She had spent so long hiding her struggles, believing that love was something she could only dream of, something reserved for people who had it all together. But Liam had shown her that love wasn't about perfection. It was about connection, trust, and being there for each other when it mattered most. As they sat together on the balcony, the cool breeze gently ruffling their hair, Linda felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had found someone who loved her for who she was, someone who was willing to stand by her side, no matter what the future held. And for the first time in her life, she truly believed that love, in all its forms, was enough. In the weeks that followed, Linda felt a shift inside herself. Liam's unwavering support and belief in her had given her the strength to face the reality of her situation, and though she still had a long way to go, something in her had changed. She no longer felt like she was fighting this battle alone. Every time she walked into his apartment, saw him waiting for her with that warm smile, it reminded her that no matter what she was going through, she was worthy of love and support. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. For the first time in a long time, she could see a future where she was thriving, not just getting by. But just as things were starting to feel like they might settle, life threw another curveball her way. One afternoon, as Linda was getting ready for her shift at the diner, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated for a moment before answering, not expecting the news that would follow. Is this Ms. Brooks? A voice on the other end asked, and Linda felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Yes, this is she replied. Cautiously, this is an official notice from your landlord. Your rent has been overdue for over a month, and we have no other option but to begin eviction proceedings if the balance isn't cleared in the next 7 days. The words hit her like a slap in the face. Her mind raced as she tried to process what was being said. She had been trying to find a way to pay it off, but the money just hadn't come through yet. She had hoped for a miracle, but it seemed that miracle wasn't coming. I understand, Linda said quietly, her voice shaking. I'll find a way to get it to you as soon as possible. She ended the call, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt like everything was unraveling again. She had gotten so comfortable with the idea that maybe, just maybe, things could be different with Liam in her life, but this felt like a cruel reminder of her reality. She had no idea how she was going to fix this, how she could even ask Liam for help. As she walked into the diner for her shift, her heart was heavy, her thoughts consumed by the impending eviction. She kept her head down, trying to push the anxiety aside, but every time a customer walked in, she couldn't help but feel like they could see through her facade, see the fear in her eyes. By the end of the night, she was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. The weight of everything she was carrying felt like it was too much to bear. Just as she was about to leave, her phone buzzed again, and this time, it was a text from Liam. "Hey, are you free for a quick chat? I need to talk to you about something." Linda stared at the message, unsure of how to respond. She knew she couldn't hide what was happening any longer, but the thought of opening up to him about the eviction was terrifying. What if he judged her? What if this was the thing that pushed him away? Her heart pounded in her chest as she typed out a reply. "Sure, I'll be home in a little while." When she walked into her apartment, Liam was already there, sitting on the couch, looking up at her with a gentle expression. He stood as soon as she entered, his arms open, as if he could sense something was wrong. "Hey," he said softly. "You look like you've had a long day. Everything okay?" Linda bit her lip, trying to fight back the tears that were threatening to spill. She shook her head slowly, the weight of it all too much to hold in anymore. "Liam, I don't know what to do. I got a notice today. I'm behind on rent, and if I don't pay it soon, I'll be evicted. I've tried everything, but it's just not enough." Her voice broke as she spoke, and for a moment, she just stood there, unable to say anything more. Liam didn't say a word at first, just walked over to her and gently cupped her face in his hands. His touch was warm, comforting, and for the first time that night, Linda felt like maybe she wasn't so alone after all. "You don't have to go through this by yourself," Liam said softly, his voice filled with resolve. "We'll figure this out. You're not alone in this, Linda. I'm here for you, no matter what." Linda's heart swelled at his words, but the doubts were still there, lingering in the back of her mind. "But I don't want to burden you," she whispered, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't want you to think I'm just asking for help." Liam gently lifted her chin, his eyes locking with hers. "You're not a burden, Linda. You never have been. You've never asked for anything from me except to be loved, and that's something I'm more than happy to give. I love you, and I want to help you through this. We'll get through it together." Linda's breath caught in her throat as his words sank in. It was the truth. She had never imagined someone would love her like this, unconditionally, despite everything. And in that moment, she realized that maybe she didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her own anymore. With Liam by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next, together. She wrapped her arms around him, holding on tight, feeling the warmth of his embrace fill her with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered, knowing that with him, she was finally starting to believe that things could get better. The following days were filled with a mix of gratitude and relief for Linda. Liam's promise to help her with the rent and his unwavering support made everything feel a little more manageable. She had been so used to carrying the weight of her struggles alone that the thought of accepting help was still foreign to her. But with Liam, it felt different. He never once made her feel like she was a burden. Every day, he reassured her, reminding her that they were in this together. Linda knew she still had a lot to figure out, but for the first time, she felt like maybe she wasn't as lost as she once thought. As the week passed, Linda focused on her work at the diner, trying to save as much as she could. She was determined to make things right, not just for herself, but for the future she could see with Liam. It wasn't easy, but every time she felt like giving up, she thought of the way Liam looked at her with so much belief in his eyes. It gave her the strength to keep going. Then, one evening, Liam invited her to dinner at a local restaurant, a place he had mentioned before, but she had never been to. It was a cozy, intimate spot, tucked away from the usual crowds, and when they walked in, Linda was immediately struck by how warm and inviting it felt. They sat at a corner table, and as they spoke about their days, Linda couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. It was the kind of evening she had dreamed about, one where everything felt right. After dinner, as they walked outside, Liam stopped her and turned to face her. He looked at her with a soft, earnest expression, and Linda's heart skipped a beat. "I've been thinking," Liam began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We've been through a lot together, and I want you to know how much you mean to me. I've never met anyone like you, Linda. You're strong, you're kind, and you make me feel like I'm really living. I'm so proud of you, of everything you're doing, and I want to be there for you in every way I can." Linda's breath caught in her throat as she listened, her heart swelling with affection. "Liam," she whispered, "I don't even know how to put into words how much this all means to me. You've changed my life. I never thought I could be someone worthy of this, worthy of love like this." Liam smiled, his eyes soft and full of warmth. "You're more than worthy, Linda. You've always been worthy. I just want to spend my life proving that to you." Linda felt her chest tighten as his words washed over her. She didn't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, she had stopped fearing that one day Liam would see her as less than she was. He loved her, not for what she had or didn't have, but for who she was. And in that moment, she realized that love wasn't about perfection. It was about acceptance, trust, and the willingness to face life together. She looked up at Liam, her heart full, and without thinking, she kissed him. It was a soft, slow kiss, full of all the feelings she hadn't been able to express until now. When they pulled away, Linda smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I love you, Liam," she said, her voice full of sincerity. "I love you too, Linda," he replied, his smile warm and genuine. As they stood there, in the quiet of the night, Linda realized that everything she had feared, every worry about not being enough, had been wrong. With Liam, she was enough, just as she was. There were still challenges ahead, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She didn't have to carry the weight alone. Together, they could face anything. And for the first time in her life, Linda truly believed that the future was hers for the taking. With Liam by her side, there was nothing she couldn't overcome. The love they shared had shown her that anything was possible. The road ahead was unknown, but as they walked hand in hand into the future, Linda knew one thing for certain. They were going to be just fine.